always like to get started with, I'm going to share my screen after the host disables screen sharing. And I'm going to just do a few slides to get everybody in the mood before we jump into today's topics. So one moment, please. Okay. Can everybody see my slides? They're all nodding their heads yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Let me just put it into the slide mode. Okay. Well, let's see. My computer is acting up, but let's just try to click through this. So welcome back, and welcome to those of you that are new. This is a working session. We spend the first 2.5 minutes just kind of giving you an overview and getting your mind ready to tackle the issues that you'll bring up today and how we can solve them. This next slide that you can see here is slides of fish, and I like to think of the fish that conversations are like the water in which fish swim. If you think about it, fish don't know they're in water until you try to pull them out of water. And that's, I think, what conversations are like. People don't realize that they spend 95 to 100% of their time in conversations in their head and conversations with others. And conversations influence everything. So let's get back to those fish. When the water is toxic, the fish can't thrive. So think about this for a moment. When your conversations are critical or destructive and they become toxic, you're not thriving, and the people that you're in conversations with are not thriving as well. So what we're doing here today is we're going to look at 2 simple practices from our book, Conversations Worth Having. And the first practice is called generative questions. And think of a generative question as a question that changes your way of thinking, can change the images in your mind, can even change the way you're interacting with others. So generative questions may not always be positive questions, because sometimes a generative question is to deepen understanding, strengthen a relationship, consider possibilities. And that second practice, positive framing, is where you enter into a conversation and you talk more about what you want instead of what you don't want, or what is working well instead of what isn't working well. Either way, conversations worth having add value to the situation. So as you're coming back today, those of you that are new, I just want to go over some quick instructions here. We're going to look into our chat box in a few minutes, and we're going to ask you to type a challenge or troubling situation. And then from the chat box, we're going to work into the Zoom feature of the whiteboard. So on the whiteboard, you'll notice that you can click on View Options, and there's going to be a drop-down menu. You'll select Annotate, and you will click on the format, and you can pick your favorite color, and we recommend you set your font pitch to 12 or 14, and you will be typing in your generative questions. So we are going to head over to the whiteboard. Let me get out of the slide mode. Stop sharing my screen. All right.
And if people will go ahead and in the chat box, type in your questions. There are a couple of them in there from last week that I brought over. And I will pull up a whiteboard. All right, can you all see the whiteboard? Okay, great. Jackie, can you grab one of those?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just hold on, I got to turn on my Annotate. I'm slow this morning, or afternoon now. Yeah, let's see. I'm just going up into, I'm going to pick one from Diana. So just give me a second.
And if anyone is on from last week's call, there were 3 of them. There were really key questions about how do we have conversations about what's going on in our country right now. And so those are important conversations for us to be.
See that one from Diana, the purple, I'm worried that going forward, white feminists will fail to hold themselves and each other accountable.
Great. So Diana, do you want to give a little more background into what's the conversation you want to be having? And maybe even what are you hoping for the outcome of your conversation? You're on mute. You're on mute, Diana.
I'll start with just a wee bit of context. I watched a video by a white feminist who deems herself to be a dismantling racism trainer. And I was very encouraged by the first couple of videos. And then there was one about tolerance. And that's just a word that's abhorrent to me, spiritually, politically, and on every level. I don't want to be tolerated. And so I think there has to be some space for people to understand that all of our ongoing work in this area is that ongoing, that it's not something that you just pick up a little bit and then you're ready to go out and train the rest of the world about. So I want people to recognize that their work is ongoing.
All right, let the questions begin.
How do I fix typos?
You don't.
Okay, darn.
How can we support each other in taking the next steps? What conversations should we have to understand, move, and move to action? What?
I have not used a whiteboard before, and I'm not sure how to.
Okay, Charlie, at the very top, you should see a little drop-down menu where it says View Options.
Gotcha.
Click on that and then click on Annotate,
Gotcha.
and you'll get a little toolbar.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And as you're reading any of these, Diane, if any of them really speak to you, yeah, please feel free to comment so we can engage in a bit of a dialogue, especially for those who might be listening to this afterwards. Yeah.
I think listening is a big part of what I'm looking for.
Can you explain that more, what you mean by listening, Diana?
I'm just going to be blunt. Shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Get off the platform and listen. Otherwise, the narrative doesn't change.
Yes. And is it white people needing to listen more and listen more deeply?
Absolutamente.
Okay, all right.
To
Good.
use my Spanish, yes.
Yeah.
Mary, I'm very sorry. I've got the annotate toolbar, but I'm not able to actually put anything on the whiteboard.
You gotta hit, you have to hit after you format, pick the text, there's a text, a little T. And
In
when
the
you
upper
click
right, left.
Okay,
it'll put a text box in there.
got it. Okay, I'm
One
sorry.
more thing, nope, Charlie, you're new here. After you type it in, you have to click off the text box so that it'll show up too.
Gotcha.
I particularly like how can we engage in listening dialogue rather than top-down training. Engage in listening dialogue, top-down training, yes.
I like the describe in several words. How would you picture the world without social prejudice and racism in all forms? An imagine question.
Are any other questions coming to your mind, Diane, as you read these?
I'm going through them now. How do we best listen, really listen?
That's nice. That's also already up there. Hey, Charlie, the how to talk mostly about white Montessori education, is that a question or is that for our next topic?
Well, it's a question that I have in my work right now. Among other things, I'm the former director of a Montessori school. I'm on the board of a statewide Montessori organization here in Tennessee.
So this sounds like it's another question for us to work on.
Okay,
Yeah?
sure.
Because everything that's up on this whiteboard are questions to potentially help answer Diana's question or Diana's concern. I am worried that going forward, white feminists will fail to hold themselves and each other accountable.
Gotcha. Okay.
Why don't we, we'll start.
Like, what will it take for white people to listen more deeply and allow POC, people of color, to take the lead?
That
And
reminds.
I think there are two parts of that. There's taking the lead in listening, and then there's also white people taking the lead to do their own work. So there are two parts of that for me.
It also makes me then kind of, it begs the question to say, where is that already happening and what can we do?
Yes, yes, absolutely, exactly, exactly. Or where is it even working best, even if it's not working perfectly? Where is it working? Yes.
And a tool for all, now that we've moved from format and everybody's typing, you can click on the word stamp in your toolbar and you can find a gold star or a heart, and you can actually take that symbol and put it next to something that resonates with you versus retyping a question. But if you see a question out there, you guys can use the symbols.
Thank you all immensely.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was a wonderful question.
Right. And so Sherry and I end up saving these and we send them out later, but you can also look at your toolbar and save them on your own computers if you can't wait for us to get them out there for you.
You can save them all the way up in the right-hand, far right-hand side of the toolbar.
And you'll find them in your document folder, and Zoom actually magically creates a Zoom folder and they'll be right in there for you.
All right, so I'm going to clear this. And do we have the next one?
I'm going to put Charlie's question or area in here.
Okay.
Charlie, if you want to tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, as I say, I'm a former director of a Montessori school. I'm on the board of a statewide Montessori organization. I also have in the past worked at a place called the Highlander Research and Education Center. Some of you may be familiar with.
Yeah.
That has been doing work around race and social justice in Appalachia in the South since the 30s. In my current role as a board member of the Montessori Alliance, our board has rather belatedly, but I think with all good intentions, realized that we need, as a community of educators here in Tennessee, to address these issues more directly. And so I'm looking at a series of meetings over the next couple of weeks with our board and perhaps with others, just trying to think about how it's a good-hearted group of mostly liberal white folk who like so many of us are, less aware probably than they think they are, and I'm trying to figure out how best to get into these conversations with them, and how to move these conversations, or help move these conversations.
Wonderful. That's a great topic.
In positive ways. And I realized as soon as I put it up there, how to talk to, what I would edit myself immediately and say how to talk with. Because talking to sounds like me telling them things, and that's not how I hope that I'm approaching this. So yeah, and I appreciate everything Diane has said about the, sometimes it is right for white people. It's important for white people to realize that they need to shut up and listen. I got eldered on that a number of times by people much younger than me when I worked at Highlander, and it was very important and helpful. And then there is the role that white people play with each other, right? Because of course, the first thing that has come up in all of my conversations with my fellow board members is we need to get more people of color on the board, which is right, but not if that's the answer that is supposed to solve everything, right? Because then we're just putting our load on somebody else who's already got their own load, if that makes sense.
Yep. All right. So anybody, if you have questions to help start a conversation among white Montessori educators, to help open up conversations about race and privilege.
Welcome back. Anna's here. I saw her clicked in. And I see Phyllis, I see you put a resource in the chat box. Is that a resource that I can throw onto the whiteboard, Harvard Implicit Bias Test?
Yes, please.
I will do that. I am watching the chat box. If you find yourself struggling with annotating, I will throw in stuff there. Thank you, Phyllis.
Break the silence. My apologies. I'm a little bit distracted today. This is the reason. Make you laugh a little bit.
Good reason.
Yeah.
Aww.
She keeps on distracting me, so I'm a little bit off today. My apologies.
Never apologize for children.
And so let's see. So Charlie, you're new. Welcome. What do you think of the questions? Is there anything that's resonating or that sticks out for you on the whiteboard?
Well, I think they're all really wonderful. Yeah, I've been thinking about the implicit bias training. I think is a really interesting idea. I do think probably we are going to need to bring some people from outside the community in to talk with us, to work with us. It's not, I think, not something that I can lead internally without having some of that. The time when we've had a productive, difficult conversation, this is they're a wonderful group of people. I love them, and Montessori educators by nature are quite remarkable folk. They are pretty confrontation avoidant, if that's the right word. I'm not sure how to say it. We have tended in the past to slide off of difficult conversations. And so, but I've only been on the board about 1.5 years. There are some people who go back much further. I'll talk to them more about that and see. Maria Montessori's writings, yeah, Maria Montessori, as those of you who know her work know, she had tremendous insight into some of this, and there are ways I think that drawing on her work would be really helpful in the conversation.
A lot of good suggestions.
Go on and on. There's a lot of I really appreciate it. There's a lot of very interesting things to think about here.
Wonderful.
We will definitely, again, Charlie and all, we will save this whiteboard and we will email these little whiteboards out to you. And you can also, on your toolbar in the far right, save on your own computers as well.
I just did that. Thank you.
Isn't that cool? Yep. Look at your advanced now, Charlie.
Oh, this is really great.
All right, let's grab one more.
Does anybody have any?
There's a couple more in the chat. Up toward the top.
Let's see. I'm looking at. Okay, I don't see. Okay, I see one about how to talk about communal prejudice. Is Marita here? Or is that from last time, Sherry?
That's from last time, and the one right above it is from last time also.
Let's put, but we don't have Marita here, I don't think, today to talk what she meant. So I would love to hear from if there's any other topics anybody else wants to throw in here, since before we move to one from last week that we didn't get to, even though she's not here today. Is there any other topics from any of you that are here today?
So I have a question. Would it be valuable for folks to ask, what are the questions we need to be asking in order to change the key systems in our culture?
May I respond?
Yes, please.
How is all this intersectional? How do we address intersectionality is a question for me.
Okay, I'm typing that up for you.
And Diana, I would love to go with that topic, because you can really, the person posing the topic can add so much more rich, thick description and context around what you're looking for and how as a community we can help you with these questions.
Absolutely. For instance, feminism often leaves out women of color. So if we're talking about real feminism, if we're talking about real change in terms of dismantling racism, we have to talk about gender, class, and race. We have to talk about all of it because it's intersectional for us. We don't show up just as women. We don't show up just as Black women. We don't show up just as poor Black women or middle-class Black women.
You said gender, race, and
Class.
class. Thank you.
And ability, all of the, everything.
All the differences.
All goes up together. Yeah, it's intersectional.
Right.
I got it. All right. Thank you. That gets my mind moving. Now I got a question.
Sorry. How do I make myself quiet?
The other question, the other thing that comes to mind for me, if I may, is I'll just posit something that I gained from technology of participation training long ago. I think we have to ask ourselves when we're interacting with other people in the service of dismantling racism, if we're interacting with that person as an object, a recipient, or resource. That is just so key for me.
It reminds me of an interview that we did, or a little mini course that we did with a professor called Renee Christensen from Denmark, and he talked about in all conversations to make sure that you're always inviting or asking, what is the other person inviting me to see or hear? And
Yes.
Also to make sure that everybody in the conversation is in a position of being valued and able to add value.
Yes.
And that speaks right to what you were just saying.
Yes. Because that the patting on the head kind of, you're a recipient, we're going to do something for you, is as infuriating to me as the objectifying.
Yes.
I think this is very powerful, Diana. You know, I think it will sit in my mind for a long time. In the world of change management, there is another way to phrase it. When you do change to people, nothing good will come up out of it. You need to create change with people. And by that, they mean the real engagement, not the formal plans of how you're going to do it, but actually, and that starts from listening. So it's beautiful how you've said that, how you see a person as somebody who needs to receive your message, and that's the job is done pretty much, and that's the position you allow for the person to have, or you see them as a very resourceful opponent in the conversation, who you can actually tap in for wisdom and extra knowledge that you don't have.
Someone to collaborate with, an ally, perhaps, someone to collaborate, however you want to term it, but someone who shows up as a resourceful person in their own life. We're all teachers and students to each other. If we don't do that and work from that assumption, I don't think we ever get out of this.
I would agree.
How are these questions? There's mostly questions out here, some thoughts out here. How are they resonating and helping you, Diana? Helping all of us, really.
Kind of hadn't done that part. How do we make? I think they're all wonderful. And I think that the key point for me is, and I say this, I've done a lot of work with young people and dismantling adultisms. The key is to have ongoing dialogues with ourselves.
Yes.
and each other. And not to beat up on ourselves, but to say, I think I can do that better the next time.
Yep.
I think I can language that in a different way. I think I can ask my question more cogently.
Yeah, getting out of the I have to get it perfect the right time
Yeah.
and into that continuous learning and
On both sides.
Yeah,
On both
absolutely.
Yes. We can't cancel people because they don't get it right the first time, because we're all trying to figure it out.
Yep.
But a willingness to listen and to go back to the mat and try again is all that I'm asking for of anyone.
That's
Thank you,
beautiful.
Diana. And let's see, Nicole's back. Hello, Nicole.
Sorry, you guys. I was just giving you an amen, Diana. I love that. That was awesome. That was awesome.
Thank
right on
you.
point. Love it, love
Thank
it, love it.
Welcome back. All right, so we are nearing the end, but we had 3 very rich, thick conversations and questions. And let's see, we're saving this last one. And we hope to see you guys again next week. These 30 minutes just fly by.
They do.
Yes,
fly
they
by.
do. Thank you all immensely. Thank you, each of you, immensely.
Oh, thank you, all of you, for being on and really willing to have these conversations that are so important. One of the things I want to tell the folks that are actually, Nicole, will you make the announcement to everybody about what we're going to be inviting people to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I see people needing to jump off. So very quickly, as Sherry and I have also been continuing the conversation just about everything that's going on. And it sounds like I came in so late, but Diana just kind of put us right there. We're just inviting a group of practitioners to come together and create a list of generative questions that we can share kind of out here now as people are beginning to march together, sit together. People are yearning to connect and speak to one another. We want them to have questions in hand that will allow them to have the kind of conversations that we're talking about. And the bigger conversation is, what about if we were to be able to have a team of folks that could participate in helping communities create summits where we bring law enforcement, where we bring youth, where we bring elders, where we bring multiple ethnicities, where we bring multiple ages together to talk about how do we recreate, how do we create the future that we most desire. So Sherry, if I've gotten a little too far out there,
No, you're good.
please, bring me back. But that's what's been on our hearts and kind of burning in our hearts to do, and to take this wonderful process and this beautiful technology of connection, this dynamic technology of connection and conversation and communication, and to be able to put it into some of our communities where people are aching for this. They're looking to actually come around the table and build together. So we have a meeting schedule that we're beginning to circulate. We'd love to have people come into the Zoom room, and let's begin to generate some ideas about how we can do something that could respond now, which is the list of questions, and how we might be able to actually create a team and design some AI summits to use in community.
Yeah, and Jackie and I will send out the link to that Google Calendar so that you'll have the information to join.
Wonderful. Thank you. Change
I
start.
love you guys.
Thank
Love
you,
you guys.
Nicole.
Thank you.
Love
Love
you,
you
love you,
all.
love you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Diane. Keep going. We're lifting you up. We're lifting you up. We're lifting each other
Thank
up.
you. We're lifting each other up. All of us.
We are.
All of
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and thank you for
There's
being.
no time for laggards if we say we're progressives.
Yeah.
Come on, Diane. Come on now. Right. You better set it off in here. I'm going to jump off, Sarah, before it gets too intense. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for Diana. And thank you to everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great week.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, you can stop recording. That went well.
Thank you. More. Thanks for telling me.